we go. And it's 1 o'clock, so we will officially start today's meeting. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to council meeting. Welcome to Councillor Phelps, who's zooming in today. Is Emma on there? And Emma, thank you very much. We've got presenters here today as well as members of the public. So welcome to the team. We've got a full table today, which is great to see. Not sure whether you've actually got a seat here still, Patrick, at the table. It sort of looks a bit full.
Oh, well, that's all right. Yeah, good thing I've done what I've done then.
Okay. Right, so we'll start off with the karakia, which is going to be led by Councillor Neil next time.
Kia ora, tēnā e whakapapa whanaru ki moana. Hei hu wahi, a tātou, ki tangi nei, ha atu, ha mai, tātou I tātou kotoa. Iei, iei.
Thank you, Jane, very much for that. Apologies, we have no apologies to receive or accept. Declarations of interest is on Teams for everybody to keep updated. There's no urgent items on the agenda, so we'll move past that onto the minutes of previous meetings. So the ordinary council meeting minutes of the 24th of August, we have an amendment to those minutes.
Effective date under from the email carried. Yeah.
So under the declarations of interest, Councillor Casson's updates the interest register requires an effective from date, which is the 24th of August 2023, and it's also now queried. So those are his updated changes to that, which need to be amended into those minutes. So can I have a move and a second that we accept the minutes and resolve to amend the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 24th of August to be confirmed during the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Gillette. Councillor Beard, thank you very much. With the amendments made. Thank you for that, Ashley. Sorry, Councillor Casson. And I approve my digital signature be added to those minutes from the 24th of August 2023. We also have minutes to receive from the standing committees. First and foremost is the CE's Review Committee meeting minutes of the 8th of December 2022, the CE's Review Extraordinary Committee meeting minutes of the 25th of May 2023, and the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Project Oversight Subcommittee meeting minutes of the 12th of July 2023. Can I have a move and a second, please? Councillor Casson, Councillor Burton, thank you very much, and resolve that the minutes of the CE's Review Committee meeting, the Extraordinary CE's Review Committee meeting, and the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant Oversight Subcommittee meeting be received. Thank you very much. Right, moving along, we will proceed to the item 6 on the run sheet, which is the action list, and we will hand over to Simon. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. I'll take you through the individual actions, current status of the Pakatara Building Council Office review. There is another round proposed discussion workshop on the 17th of October. In regards to Government House, we have a report today, confidential as requested from the last council meeting. The Racecourse development, we have a presentation today on the current status of the project from Josephson Associates very shortly. I do request that that one is removed, mainly because it is actually a live weekly item on council. This action was originally started quite some time ago just to make sure the council was kept up to date. Coming back to council. CBD maintenance program workshop for the 4th of October is scheduled in. The last action with regards to the speed limit review, we have had a workshop recently on the 14th of September, and once again suggested that one is also removed. Happy to take questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. Simon, any questions? That's for the,
Chair, just from the last action list, there's a couple of removals. Stat Cemetery and the Kaipuku Initiative.
Yeah, so that direct removed because actually been, well, the Stafford Cemetery MOU has been signed off and completed with the Heritage Hokitika, so that activity is actually live and underway.
And where we going?
So we've already arranged, we've already had a meeting with Jay McWinter, and we have another one session booked for next week as follow-up. So it's actually a live action.
any further questions for Simon? No? Thank you very much for that, Simon. Can I please have a move and a second and resolve that the updated action list from the Chief Executive be received, please? Councillor Beard, thank you very much. Another seconder, please. Councillor Davidson, thank you very much. Right, item 7 is presentations, and we will hand over, first of all, we will welcome Claire Brown, the Group Manager, and Tony Hartless, the Emergency Management Officer, to speak to us. So welcome aboard, guys. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. E te ahau, he te mihi, ki ngā Way councillors and Mayor Lash. Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou, Western District Council staff and members of public. Ko Claire Brown, a tapu ingoa, ko mai tamariki me rongo whakata o ke iwi, ko Hokitika, toku kāinga, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claire Brown and I'm the Group Manager for West Coast Emergency Management. Really happy to have the opportunity here today to run you through a few key highlights around West Coast Emergency Management. I have with me Tony Hart, who is our Emergency Management Officer for Westland District. I have a presentation which I will run through. I have a presentation which I will run through. We've got 13 slides, so I will keep an eye on the time. The slides will cover some key areas of activity. We'll talk about our community groups, where the rubber hits the road. We'll also talk about our capability and training program. We'll talk about what we're currently planning around engagement with our Hokitika communities. Also including in the presentation around our efforts to improve our capability around our Emergency Operations Centre, and we'll also end on talking about a few success points and some challenges and opportunities going forward. Right, so the first very slow. Oh, okay. Great. So this is just a picture that some of you may have seen recently in the paper. So this is us at the container up at Okarito. Otira. Sorry. My apologies. Otira. Statistics. So a few highlights to note here. We have had 7 partial activations since February earlier this year, so that involves us preparing to activate, and all of those have been as a result of either a rain warning or a tsunami warning as well. We've had 54 training opportunities that have been attended from Western District Council staff. And that's for the last financial year. We've had, so far this calendar year, 19 community meetings have taken place. We have had, as you will all be aware of, the $200,000 Better Off funding that has been rolled out across the district, which has included the current rollout of 19's Darlink alternate communication devices. Moving through, so the next couple of slides are around a lot of this is around our work with the community. This particular picture is a picture of our tailored generator units that we took hold of last month. We have placed one in each of the 3 districts. So I'll talk a little bit about our work with our community groups. Okay, community groups. So I just want to give this quite a bit of attention. We are very aware that this is our priority area. The work that we do with each of our communities across the district is key for us. This is, as I indicated, where the rubber hits the road. So what we are currently doing is taking a stock take of where each of those communities are at, so that we have a good understanding about the baseline, the benchmark of where they're at. That will help us in terms of being able to prioritise what we need to do next. I think it's fair to say that we have had a lot of activity in the last couple of years around working with our communities, but we need to have a much more strategic approach to that, so that we know what our priorities are, who needs what, and most importantly, how we're going to fund or resource that need. That piece of work in terms of getting that good picture about where communities are at is happening at the moment. A few points on this slide to raise. We have an end of year target to have 80% of our communities with a community response plan. So not all have a plan, and not all plans are up to date. So we acknowledge that this is a huge piece of work that we need to prioritise. A couple of other highlights here. We've had some recent good progress around meetings with our Ross community, also with our Okarito communities as well in the last couple of weeks. We have had a lot of work around our Franz Joseph community. They had an exercise last weekend which involved members of the community as well as other partner agencies. This is a challenging area, as I'm sure you'll all be aware. We have one emergency management officer for the district. The challenge of being able to get across to have a good profile and visibility across all those communities is an ongoing piece of work. But for me and the team, this is at the top of the list. Right, I'll move through to another couple of slides also relating to communities. So it's about building capability. So if we build capability with our communities, they become able to coordinate with us. So we have an end of year target around community groups who are confident using information. We have an aim to regularly practice tabletop exercises with all of our communities. We need our communities to be motivated and connected with us as a sector and with the council. The next slide is around our Hokitika Community Response Group. So what often happens, not only in this part of the country but others also, is that we have a focus around our smaller communities or areas that are easily cut off or vulnerable, and we don't always turn our attention to the larger towns. So we have a capacity here in town which is untapped. So we have community groups, agencies, organisations, members of the public who can become a part of our response team if they are given the support, the training to do so. Tony has had 2 meetings in the evening, invite to members of our public and community organisations so that we can start to build that network and increase the capacity that we all have in terms of response. The next slide is around what happens in here when we activate and when we turn this into an operations centre. So we have done a lot of work around how we improve on our IT and technical ability to respond to an event. We're in the throes of implementation of a new operational platform that we will use across all of the region. So we are currently in the process of enabling Grey District and Buller District to be able to use that platform as well. So essentially what that means is that when the team comes in here and turns on the laptops, everyone sees a consistent and the same operating platform. This platform called D4H is currently being rolled out or currently is in use by a range of other groups across the South Island. In the recent events over the last couple of weeks, it was used as the response platform for the events in Otago and Southland. So we're currently in the throes of rolling that out, and I'm hoping that by early next year, that will be our operating platform. There's a whole host of different activities which require the work of our team and of your team in terms of the Western District Council personnel to be able to function and operate the operations centre in this room. We're also a part of the project plan around the work to have a purpose-built facility at Hokitika Airport. In addition to that, we have an exercise program that we will commence in October and that will run through until early next year. There's a few different components to that program. We are going to do a run through of the IT that we are currently rolling out, just to exercise, test and practice and give all of our teams opportunity to become more familiar with that platform. As a part of the exercise program, we'll also have a section around declarations. So this is a really key part of a response, and it's often a really high pressure situation where a number of agencies are a part of that decision making. So we are going to do an afternoon exercise around the process from the beginning to the end in terms of what we need to do to make that decision around a declaration. That part of the exercise will occur here, and it will also occur in the other two district councils, and also involve the regional council as well. The other two aspects of the exercise program are around more of the operational functions of the operations centre. It will focus around what we need to do in terms of our longer-term planning and when the response transitions into recovery. Okay, I'll just move through to the next slide. This next slide, which is a little bit out of order. So this is, I think, one of the challenges has been, as I mentioned earlier, around having a strategic focus around our work with our communities. We need to improve how we tell the journey about the work with our communities, where they're at. What we have developed in the last couple of months is a very straightforward Excel matrix that has some key aspects around communities being provided that support and training and able to be in coordination with us. It's probably quite difficult to see the groupings on the slide. I'll read them out. We have a section around community response groups. So does that community have a group? Are they supported? Do they meet on a regular basis? Are they empowered? The next section is around a community response plan. So you might have a group, but do they have a plan? So we've got we have developed a template that we use across all of the region's communities to help us provide some level of consistency about the work that we are doing with our communities. So do they have a plan? Is the plan up to date? Does the plan contain, you know, the level of content that we need to help them in terms of being as prepared as they can be? The next section here in the blue is around, do they have a centre? Do they have facilities? Do they have the resources that are required in terms of being able to activate? And that will touch on a number of different aspects, including alternate communications, the emergency containers, which a number of the communities already have, and a number of other elements as well. I'm finding it hard to read myself. Yeah, so there's half a dozen different aspects in that section. The next two sections around people and the resources in that town. So it's around, are we connecting in with the other services in that community? The health sector, the Ministry of Education sector, the farming community. Do we have good connections and support across all of that? And finally, the last one is around capability. So again, that's around training. Are we providing the opportunities to members of our communities around being able to take part in various training programs, and including the opportunity to actually try out, as was the case for Franz Joseph last week when they did the exercise. So no big surprises on that list, and that's a real foundation blocks in terms of what it takes to build on and support our community. So this is the picture that we want to continue to be able to present to you. That will give you an indication of how we are going as a network and the work that we need to prioritise across our community. So if you're able to picture that with all of our communities in a column, and then you will have an A3 visual of how we are going with our communities, which will help us again in terms of, you know, the business case, in terms of what we need to do, the resourcing that is required, how we want to approach different funding opportunities, you know, the long-term plan, etc. So, and that is to be replicated across all of the 3 districts. And I hope it will be a very valuable tool for us. Okay, nearing the end of the paper presentation, then happy to take any questions. Just a couple of slides left. The next couple are around successes, so I just want to highlight a few aspects. Again, this is a picture that was taken outside the Franz St John Medical Centre last weekend when we did supported the community around the exercise that they held. Successes. And this is a bit tricky to read. So in August, we delivered incident control kit for the Waitera community. We had a radio delivered to the Southwestern Area School. We had the Ross community engagement. We've had a couple of good meetings with them in the last couple of weeks. From July until now, we've increased our connectivity of our VHF radio network for the Westland communities, which also includes testing it on a monthly basis. In the last couple of months, we've also heard from Forest that they have got 2 additional generators for the Fox community, which really enhances our resilience around communications. As I said, we had the exercise in Friends last weekend. The exercise in Friends was one of a number of different work areas that have been worked on since May this year. So there has been quite a lot of activity in that community. We've been delivered a 1,000 litre fuel pod. We have one now in each of the three districts. And as I said earlier, the rollout of the Starlinks, which was due to the funding through the Better Off Fund. So those are just a few highlights tonight. The last couple of slides from the presentation around challenges. I'm sure you will be quite familiar with what they might be. This is just a picture of the training that we delivered around SIMS training. A lot of what we do is around building capability, so that it's not just us and the team, that it's the wider network and members of community who are empowered to be able to respond and recover. So this is just a picture of one of our training sessions, and that's Tony, I believe, with the orange jacket on.
I've had a haircut since then.
Okay, challenges, and this is our last slide of the presentation. No big surprises here. Funding for community response groups, so that involves training aspects, but also around resourcing. Unfortunately to say, likelihood of increased heavy rain events, we'll all be quite conscious of the shift in the weather pattern, and so we have had quite a good year so far, and we've had a number of really good summers. So we've already seen quite a bit of shift in the area, even with the events in the last couple of weeks. We've got a number of communities that have poor radio coverage in terms of being able to connect in with our VHF network. So that is, in terms of communication, that's one of the key aspects, so that needs to be prioritised. And we are affected as a team and as a wider community of response around events that happen in other parts of the country. So that also has an impact on us and our partner agencies. And so, you know, obviously the events in the North Island at the beginning of the year involved all of us, a number of us here. Te Araha was controlled in Hastings for a number of weeks, and all of us had opportunities to be able to deploy. So that all has an impact. It has an impact on us as a team, but also as the wider network. Okay, so there is the end of the paper presentation. Very happy to take any questions on any points raised. Again, I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to come along. I would like to have this opportunity more often. I would like to be able to talk about the journey and the challenges that we have in a more methodology approach, so that's a bit more strategic, and you can actually understand where we're at and where we need to be and what the gap is, to enable to help us to help everyone to do their job. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire. Just in terms of the structure,
Yes.
I take Buller and Grey and Western are the districts, the 3 districts, and within those districts you have the community groups, that, you know, like Thaka and Rossum, Narahari and Upper and so on. Whereabouts do you guys sit in terms of the structure?
So West Coast Emergency management is a centralised team, so we sit within the regional council as the administering agency for us. We have a responsibility for each of the district councils, so we have the Tony in the other two districts as well, and the primary focus was around supporting the Westland community, the Westland District Council, in terms of being able to respond and recover. We have a governance, which is joint committee, so that is the mayors and chair. We've got Makawhio and Ngāti Waewae represented on our joint committee as well. So that's kind of our overarching governance, and so they are the funders. So it's all of our councils, including the regional council, and that is a picture that is across all of the country. And we have a executive group which contains all of the chief executives plus the other agencies, health, FENS, police, St John, Department of Conservation on ours, because they're obviously a key player. And we also have Ngāti Waewae and Makawhio at the executive group as well. And then it's us, the team of 6 at the moment.
Thanks. Thank you.
Claire, thank you for the report. Well, I'd like to know actually, and Tony maybe able to answer this one, is I really want to know actually how our communities are going and where they're placed. Are they actually getting themselves positioned to cope? It's really what we need to be knowing.
Yeah, and that's what
Tony's working at the coalface, so it'd be quite good to have some feedback from him on his work he's been doing, if that's all right.
Happy to.
Yeah, I think the communities are doing quite well in a lot of respects. Westland, by nature, is quite a resourceful community, and Westlanders seem to be quite resilient by nature as well. I have been focusing quite closely on the Ross community recently. The reason for that is mainly that I want to get my methodology down with the Ross community before I start deploying it to other communities. It's a chance for me to take my time and make sure that I get things right. I have been working with the other communities, particularly Harry Oreto, quite a bit with Haast and Fox Glacier. Not so much the north, but it is on my radar. I think they are doing really well, and there's a lot of motivation and a lot of engagement. I think the communities are screaming out for attention. If I had the time, then I could probably be down there every day doing something.
And you see that for them to comprehend the reliance on themselves, that they're starting to understand that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's quite a common component of our conversations, and it does seem to take up a fair amount of our discussions, is how long will it take for other agencies to respond and start providing support? How long will it take for Westland EOC both to provide support? What kind of support will we be able to provide to them? And those kinds of things, realistically, I can't answer in too much detail because it depends a lot on what is left in the scenario. In a flooding scenario, it's a lot simpler and it's a lot easier to manage, and that is where the exercising and the education comes in, making sure that communities are able to use those information management resources and tools that we have and develop.
So it's the ability to pick up on any shortfalls or lack of, it's the ability to bring that back to the base happening, as far as looking at what the needs are to feed back into what you're picking up on as being shortfalls.
Do you mean in terms of where they're at now, or
when you're out there with them and you see gaps and stuff, so you're able to bring that back and then create whatever resources they need to put back in to help fill those things.
That's kind of a key part of my work program, is identifying the areas and communities that need improvement, or the weak points, and the resources that they may need. For instance, some of the communities have been asking for whiteboards and things like that. So identifying those things and then finding a way to deliver them.
Thanks, Tony, for that. That's excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can I just make a comment through the chair regarding that line of questioning? So I think it's fair to say that we haven't had a strategic approach to how we support communities, and it is a balance. We want to be able to enable and empower. It's about managing expectations. So what can we do, what can't we do? We've got some communities that are very proactive, that have been able to reach out and access funding from a variety of different avenues. We've got others not enabled as much enabled to do that. So I think a part of the priority of our team is actually understanding where they are at, and that's that piece of work that's happening at the moment with the different sections that I talked about earlier. Thank you.
Through your worship. So I just wanted to note that the reference to the Emergency Operations Centre at Hauptticker Airport is not confirmed. I'm not even sure why that was raised, to be honest, but
Through the chair, West Coast Emergency Management are happy to be a part of that project team. So we're just participants of the project. So wherever that project goes, we're happy to be a part of the project team.
it's $1.1 million for Western ratepayers, and it's not confirmed. On the CEDAM group committee that I sat, I mean, it was twice that was raised at that meeting in that forum, and twice it was thrown out and confirmed. The Greymouth was the Western Recreation Centre, was the regional emergency centre.
Yes.
And being only 10 minutes helicopter flight from Hauptticker Airport to Greymouth, one wonders about the need for that. Notwithstanding that this building isn't.
If you can, I don't think that conversation is associated to the report that Claire's brought to us, Claire Tony brought to us today. It's a different conversation. We're not talking about the EOC, we're talking about the report from Civil Defence to their management of the communities and the program, implementation of the program. Yes, if we want to have that as another discussion, we can have that as another discussion at another time.
Sorry, I had thought we were talking about Civil Defence.
Well, we are, but that you're talking specifically about the EOC building and so forth, and that's another discussion.
There also may be some context on that one
Yes.
that I was not aware of when I was helping to put this together. So if there is something missing there that I wasn't aware of.
Thanks, Sonny.
And through the chair, we have confirmed as a committee that the Emergency Coordination Centre, which sits over, its overarching across all of the region, remains in Greymouth. We've made that decision, that's clear, that's the line in the sand. So that is the case.
Can I just ask through the chair, where is the Emergency Operations Centre in Westport?
It is at Victoria Park. Victoria Park on Brown Street, so it's kind of diagonal and across the street from all the district council buildings. It's a part of the old sports stadium on the top floor.
Thank you, Claire. And I think, Paul, that's actually a conversation that's for the Meals and Cheese we meet with Civil Defence team as far as clarifications on those go. But we're talking about Westland today. So does anybody have anything further for Claire? Councillor Gillette.
Through the chair, Claire, I'm just interested in these fuel pods.
Yes.
So what's the life of the fuel and how do you plan to manage that?
The life of the fuel. So the pods are empty. So they will be filled with whatever type of fuel is needed at the time. So this particular project is about increasing our capacity to store fuel. So there is a large piece of work which we would love to get into around fuel, how we keep it on the coast and the type, and how we get access of fuel from out of the region into the region in response. It's our critical resource fuel.
Is this for generators fuel?
a whole host of different applications. Could be for vehicles, for generators, for emergency, health, a whole host of different aspects. And we saw in Hastings and Tairāwhiti the huge reliance on having a power source, and they all need fuel of some sort.
So just follow up, the generators, how secure are they? I mean,
How secure?
yeah, obviously in Hawke's Bay, generators were in hot demand.
Yes.
How secure is the hardware we provided, that you provided?
So we have a trailer generator now in each of our districts. My expectation is that they are in secure areas. I think for Western District, there's in a compound. And so yes, they are a high value item, and we saw the risk of that in the recent events in the North Island.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Hill, then we'll take Councillor Kessler.
A couple of things. So, yeah, with the generators, have we got a register of all generators?
So we are building a resource register with Fire Emergency New Zealand. So that's about not only where are the generators, but who are the people to call. So a generator could be down there, could be up there, depending on what time of day. So it's about not necessarily knowing where all of the generators are, but who do you call in terms of being able to access the generator. We have got a list at the moment which is just across fire emergencies, St John, and we are building on adding into that other emergency services as well. So that's a sort of it's the beginning of that. But the key aspect is who do you call. When we've got people from other parts of the country potentially here who won't know, the local lay of the land like what we do. We need to have you call this organisation, and this organisation. So, but then we're also building our own resources with having the trailer generators.
So if Joe Broggs moves to Ross or wherever, how do they find out? Who ensures that they know the risks and what they can do to help themselves and so on? Okay. So they probably don't go to the community association meetings because that's only a small percentage.
That's a very good question. I think we can do more around promoting how to find out more about how you can become involved and how you can find out more about the risks and how to respond in whatever part of the region you live in. I think that's a work on area for us.
I spoke to someone recently in Mount, I think it was, and they've been on the coast for 18 months. They had no idea that there was even a risk of, a big earthquake or anything like that. It's like, wow.
So we do, that is interesting. We do a variety of different promotional activities. So there's Exercise Shakeout in October, that's a national exercise. We test the emergency mobile alert on an annual basis, that's across the country. We've just completed our Alpine Fault Road show across all of the region. We had a huge turnout at the Hokitika Region Theatre to talk about the risk associated with Alpine Fault. We often have a presence at different activities like AgFest as an example, to promote and to talk and to tell, talk about the risks and how you can be prepared. We work with our communities across all of the region. There's a whole host of different ways that we try and sort of tackle that, and it's also at a national level as well through our National Emergency Management Agency. But there's always more, and there'll always be, gaps and people that we don't have to cut through to. So it's an ongoing challenge.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Casson and then I think, Tony, do you still have a comment?
No, I just wanted to say that when I engage with the communities, one thing that I've noticed is that as I engage with them, it begins a discussion and that kind of has a ripple effect through the community, and I've been able to see that at work in both Ross and Harry so far, and I expect that will improve as we get out and about more and engage more with developing their plans and exercise plans.
Thank you for that, Tony. I'll take one more, Councillor Cassidy, and then we'll,
You alluded to, I guess, a strategic gap between where we sit now and
Yes.
obviously we've got time, we've got money, we've got other resources that sit between
Yep.
here and here.
Yep.
What's the indication on the turnaround of that piece of work to, I guess?
So we're currently doing that piece of work now. That's a 12-week project. We're probably halfway through. So I'm hoping that by that, say, the end of November, I will have a much better view of this is the situation of our communities. So that will influence what our work program is going into next year. The timing's probably a little bit off in terms of having any influence in terms of the annual planning process, but we are, that's a critical piece of work. It's hard to know what to do next without having some overarching view of what the problem is. And I think that's been a problem for it some time, and that we have perhaps had attention to or put resources in communities for reasons that might not be as, scientific or as strategic as they should be, and so yeah, it's about a level of fairness and consistency across all of the district, but all of the region in terms of what they get and the level of support. So the turnaround, hopefully by the end of November, I'll have that that picture.
I suspect you'll exactly from this.
I would love the opportunity to continue to talk about the story.
thank you, Claire. And thank you very much for getting here today, the two of you, for that presentation and answering the questions and moving through that. It's greatly appreciated, and we look forward to the next update as we move forward. It's a very important part of who we are and what we need to be doing. So thank you for that, and for the dedication and focus you guys have. I'm pleased to move to the secondary, please receive the report presented by Claire. Councillor Neal, thank you. Councillor Burton, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, very much for that. That's greatly appreciated. Is it all on there? Oh, cool. Okay. Right, so we move now on to the next slide. The Hokitika Racecourse Development Project update, and online we have Paul Zayner. Thank you. Hi, Paul. We have Jason and Sally. Full house. Welcome everybody to this afternoon's meeting.
Got it.
And we'll throw over to you, Paul, for the update on the working group. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really sorry I couldn't be in Hokitika today. I did let the working group know that I'm not even on the West Coast. I'm up in Wellington, so apologies for that. I wanted to provide an update today, so I hope you've all had a chance to read the update. This is an interim update from the working group, so it is not the final recommendations. So the first of the updates and the request from the working group was an extension of 1 month before the ROI broader community outcomes go out. So it's a conversation we had at the working group where the amount of time that we've spent working on this was sort of buried deep in the project, and we absolutely flooded the working group with data and information. So they've asked for an extra month, and then we come back at the end of next month to council with the confirmed community broader outcomes, which informs the request for proposal from the private sector. The other consideration that came through from the working group, which picked up on the community engagement findings, was to go back out to the community with an update and next steps as well. So as we sort of engaged with the community last time around, there was a recommendation from us as consultants to the council to say, hey, you need to keep this conversation going in an iterative manner, and the working group has picked up on that and supported that. Further beyond that as well is that 80% of the respondents approximately to the engagement findings were around the recreation reserve and the broader kind of planning framework. So at the moment, we as a consultancy have been focused primarily on the housing outcome side of things, where the engagement findings said, look, we've got issues around a loss of green space, a loss of grazing, etc. So there's an extra work stream now that's been recommended, and that's to look at the other side of the Hokitika Racecourse and start doing some planning around that. So what we've put forward today to the council for consideration is just a high-level snapshot of the 5 sort of components that we want to go go out and have another conversation with the community around. One is an update on the ROI RFP process and how the community findings have shaped those broader outcomes and what the request for the private sector to respond to is. So to be able to basically explain to the community, look, this is what we heard from you, and this is how you've influenced how the council goes to the private sector. The public works within the development. We want to give an update to the community, so say, this is what you said to us, this is what's inside scope for the council, and this is the changes that came out of that as well. Then we want to have a conversation around next steps and planning of the recreation reserve adjacent to the racecourse. The fourth point is the Boys Brigade and the AMP show area. So the community feedback really did say, do not develop close to the Boys Brigade. That's a community space. So I want to go back and have a conversation about what could this central hub look like. And the fifth one is the wider and integrated planning. So as we've been getting deeper into the project, we've found opportunities that might assist certain stakeholders as well. Whether it is the equestrian community or the cycling and walking group as well. So we want to activate that work stream around engagement and planning at the same time. So down the bottom of the paper that we've put forward, we've kind of shown the timelines of activity today. So in late October, we obviously come back to the council with the findings of the working group and the community broader outcomes that inform the private sector. But we also want to go back out to the Hokitika community, so online and via email, just to provide an update on what's changed in design and outputs, and then have targeted stakeholder meeting at the end of October, meet up with those groups that we met up with last time as well and go, look, this is what's changed since the council's given approval and since we last talked to you. And then in November, we go back with actual planning of the recreational reserve. December, we go back one more time to sort of say, this is where the planning is at, this is what it looks like, and then we step into the LTP consultation process after that. So is that, from the members that are on the working group, is that a fair enough sum up of the interim commentary from the working group? This is not the final recommendations of the working group. I just need to make that clear.
Yeah, you seem to be agreeing, Paul.
What was that, sorry?
There seems to be agreement from the working group members that are here that you've got that covered.
Oh, so if council is happy that we go back out to the community for further engagement and that we step into the planning of the rec reserve and some of the wider integration, then that's the next stage of activity that'll kick off next month.
The understanding where that's at? What Paul's saying there. So we're bringing the green space back into the equation. So we'll be looking at that concurrently, working side by side, going forward and out to the community. So it's increasing from what we originally thought would be the communication with the communities. Both of you.
I have a question there. Just, I understand that you wouldn't want to develop too close to the Boys Brigade. Approximately what distance are you talking about there?
So just if you remember that the arterial road, the extension of Park Street, that from the Boys Brigade to Park Street would become a bit more of a community central hub, a green space area, if you will, to be decided and to be designed with the community. But that was give or take the scope area. We've left an allowance that if it comes back that there's an option to develop some houses just on the front edge of that road on the Park Street extension, that is an option, but that's give or take the buffer zone is from what the Park Street extension would be to the Boys Brigade.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
So do you understand that? It's taking out that section that was right and looking at the others around that first and foremost to protect the Boys Brigade and bring the AMP on top of it. Paul.
Thank you. Two things. One was I didn't know that the recreational aspect was part of this project.
We brought that back to the table.
When?
The working group has decided this needs to be worked on for the sake of the community, because it was a very strong part of the community communications that we had, that they were concerned on the green space. And so it was decided by the working group to bring that back and work with it concurrently with the other aspects of housing.
So we worked out how much that's going to cost in consultants to this extra component.
And consultants?
Well, Joseph and Associates are running it, as I've just heard. That's extra on the top of what we're doing. I want to understand how much that costed.
So just to your worship, we haven't received the offer of service to do their work yet, so we'll be working with Joseph and Associates to get that cost.
So part of the part of the intention today was so the working group was making recommendations to the council and saying this is what we believe, and that was in the terms of reference. So the working group has said we think you need to go out and talk to the community more, and we think you need to go out and do some of the rec reserve planning. So we've got a draft and high level run sheet of activity, and we at Joseph's are starting to put some hours and time against that to scope it out. But I didn't want to deliver an offer of service to executive without this conversation happening around this table in advance, and also any potential advice from councillors and yourself around if the scope was appropriate.
The second point was I don't see in here the 6 areas of master plan when we're going to go out to seek third-party interest in the housing development.
So the ROI, that's what the 1 month extension is. So last time we came to council, we said we'd come back with the recommendations from the working group for council at this meeting, and that would inform the criteria for assessment. And then subsequently in 2 weeks' time, we would have started putting that out to the market. So essentially it's 4 weeks behind where we thought we would be. And that was the recommendation from working group, is just to slow down a little bit to make sure we got the community outcomes appropriate. So give or take 6 weeks from now, pending the next council meeting and approval from governance.
Okay, thank you, Paul. But I just thought it was meant to make it clear to the public that this isn't necessarily the council taking on the risk of developing housing. Yep. This is a third party.
Totally agreed.
Yep. I just want to make it clear, but it's not so clear on the report, that's all.
It is something we've talked
okay. Yeah.
We're talking about the infrastructure development underground, and then somebody else comes in and does everything on top. The council doesn't tend to get the time for that sort of commercial engagement anyway.
Yeah, and I think that was, sorry, there's a little bit of a lag at my end. I'm incredibly sorry if I'm seeming rude. So that was the intention, I think, of the working group as well, is to say, look, since the decision of council, there has been a void of information and update to the community. And I think that's why the recommendation from the working group is saying, go back out to the stakeholders, go back out to the Hokitika community and explain exactly this to them. This is not the council doing a development, it is doing trunk line infrastructure only. And that there is a process to onboard the private sector with the intention that they deliver those community broader outcomes as well. So I totally agree, Paul, that we need to go back out and actually explain this really clearly to people as well.
Scott, did you want to?
No, Paul's just said what I was going to say.
Councillor Lee.
Just in the name of openness and engagement, Simon, do we have an idea of how much engagement has cost us so far, how much it will cost to get to the ROI stage, and how we're funding it?
We've already actually covered that about twice before. Paul, you actually, this is all claimable, isn't it, as far as this work that's done, Paul?
So there is a line in the sand on what is claimable and what is not. So the recreation reserve, the intention of the fund was that IAF pays for that trunk line infrastructure and any works associated with that. So all the civil design, all the geotech, etc., and the physical construction. Now, what would be considered BAU activity for the council, such as community engagement, that's on the other side of that funding pot. That is an internal cost to WDC or the ratepayers of Hokitika. That is not able to be drawn back. However, just remembering that any proceeds from the sale of the land gets put into the recreation reserve development and or some of the associated costs with that as well. So I would argue that the engagement and the design of the recreational reserve planning should be paid back out of that money, because it is a direct benefit of the project under the fair share agreements.
Sorry, I will come in, because when we had the first working group meeting, there was inevitably a very, very sharp focus on that part of the racecourse that people were talking about the potential for building out. And what the working group said is, when we did the stakeholder meeting at the Boys Brigade on that Wednesday and Thursday night, it was quite clear from a number of stakeholders that they were concerned about losing amenity, and they wanted to understand what it is council was going to facilitate that meant they kept amenity and so on and so forth. And the problem that we were trying to address is, if all we did was come back to council and say, this is what we're going to do on the housing bits, then quite rightly people could come back and say, but hang on a minute, our concerns were over here, and you've not even addressed that. So the idea of starting to talk about wider amenities and go back to the community and say, these are the things we've heard, these are some of the thoughts that we've got, can we talk to you a little bit further about this? Otherwise I just think we're ignoring them.
Right, Councillor Neil, and one more after that.
Just one simple thing, it's not A and P, that's insurance, I think, it's A and P.
Thank you very much. Noted for future reference. Sorry.
That's a simple fact, not such a simple fact. So, I just don't believe, like, Scott, you're just talking about the people that fed into what they wanted to see on that end of the racecourse. They were talking about the whole thing.
About totality. I am talking about the totality.
And we still, I don't think we still haven't listened to them. The feedback on the green areas, the whole area, it wasn't just on the recreational side.
Yeah, no, that's the nature, and that's the nature of the discussion that we're talking about having.
It's not coming through in a lot of the comments, and it's not just comments around this particular report, it's right through all the council meetings. It was mentioned earlier on today as well. So I just
and effectively what it is that is consistent with what the working group is saying. The working group is saying is it's bigger than just this bit you've been talking about.
Bigger than which bit?
The smaller area. So we are talking about.
We're still talking as if the housing development is a done deal.
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that's what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to have a scenario where that's all we're talking about.
So we need to talk about the whole thing, but we shouldn't be talking yet about the housing development being a done deal.
We're not as such, Jane, we're actually moving down the pathway of looking at taking that out for interest, at which point we can say negative to proceeding with it anyway. But we made the decision to go down that pathway, which is exactly where we are.
I just think it needs to be quite clear then. That's still up for discussion.
Yeah, that's fine. It's always been a given that that's where we're at. It's got to come back to the table, and we've got to go back out and have discussion. We've got to keep working on it. Councillor Phelps.
Oh, thank you. I'll call that about an hour without me talking, so that'll be a record since I've been on the council so far. But, I didn't hear a clear answer to Stephen's question. It's a moot point to me who's paying for it, but how much has been spent on consultation and discussion so far, and is there a fixed budget for it? Because I think we're just going to continue to battle with competing claims over this piece of promised land, and I don't think we're going to get consensus within the community as to the future of this site. So we could do an infinite level of consultation and engagement, but yeah, just back to Stephen's question, how much have we spent on that so far, and how much will be spent irrespective of whether it's claimable or unclaimable? And then I've got another question after that, but can I get a clear answer on that first?
In terms of exact spend, I don't have that figure in front of me, so we'll have to get back to council's figure. In terms of the budget, we have a budget within the LTP that has been utilised for master planning, which this is part of.
So we're drawing away from other consultation budget that's already within the LTP, right? So if we had to do consultation on something else in the future, this has come at the expense of that?
This is budget within the LTP tagged to the racecourse development.
Okay, no, that's fine. And then just to clarify, I know that we're not becoming property developers, we're just getting the IAF to underwrite the trunk line infrastructure and so forth. But if there's not the demand there to actually go ahead with projects, then no one puts in a bid or anything like that, and therefore no one wants to utilise the trunk line infrastructure funding, do we just leave the land idle with horses or something grazing on it, or what's the plan if there's not the uptake? Because I recall in one of the earlier reports seeing a reference to the other racecourse subdivision on the next terrace saying that it was a relatively successful development, and I had a phone call with Lankanol not too long ago arguing against that actually.
I think as far as the discussion goes, Councillor Phelps, that will happen when we get to that stage, because there's probably not a lot of time and spending a lot of energy if it doesn't proceed, because I mean, we'll have to look at it and say, well, what does the community want to do with that land? Because it either sits and deteriorates, or we put it to, you know, a higher value use for a wider reach across the community. That's a discussion that we had come that time.
All right, thank you. No further questions for now.
Last question, please.
Thank you. Just a matter of process. In future, could the working group directly to the council rather than via consultants?
Well, we sort of report back in conjunction with them to a certain level.
Well, with respect, I mean, we just had, and that was quite a big recommendation. Well, it was a positive recommendation that the consultants take up the recreational aspect of this project as well. So that was an addition, and quite an addition to what the project was. That came to us not from the working group, but by consultants.
So just on your part, Your Worship, the Josephson Associates are working on behalf of the working group as well. So they're transferring and prescribing what the working group is telling them to just put it into a report on behalf of the working group. So those were the recommendations from the working group which has come forward today, not from the consultants.
As far as that recreational area goes, from when we worked as a working group and made that call, this is what's coming to you now. This is.
And as far as the recreational part is concerned, it's always been part of the project. It was just going to be dealt with later on. We said we want it brought forward and we want the project in its entirety. So we don't even cover the housing development here and recreational development here. We want linkage together. We want it to be one, you know, amazing project.
I think, with respect, that's what we didn't have until now. Because the only conversation we've had about it is what we've had from Paul. What I'm saying is a matter of process. We've got councillors in the mayor sitting on this working group. If there's a recommendation or suggestions of such nature, that they come back to us from the working group directly. Consultant.
Well, it would be no different to having the consultants sitting there as part of the meeting as they are today, and members that are here giving that report.
We can have that discussion. That's the time and the place for now. We'll have how do you see that happen?
It wouldn't have come to council any earlier than that, because the decision's only been made between the last meeting and this one.
Okay, I'm missing something here. I must have said. I thought that a working group of the council would report back to the council. It's simply a matter of you fellows that are sitting on the group, Stephen and Riley and the Mayor, sitting on the working group would come back and would introduce it and say, we've had a meeting, this is what we recommend, and over to you forward. It didn't, I mean, it would come through from the consultant.
Right, we take that on board as far as that goes. We appreciate your comment. Sorry? Well, I think we have taken that on board.
Oh, thank you.
Right. Thanks, guys, very much. for the report. Does anybody have anything further for Jason, Sally and Paul? Right, can I have somebody please move in seconds and resolve that the development project update from Joseph Associates be received? Councillor Anderson, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillors, please. Having movers and seconders, please. Right, not a conversation. Thank you, Councillor Minero. Right, thank you guys very much for that. Greatly appreciated your attendance this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time.
Bye.
Right, so from there we go to. To Cody, please, for the financial performance. Thank you very much, Cody.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. Through Your Worship, I present the financial report to August 2023. Before I answer any questions, I want to point out some human errors. This one, page 44, the Statement of Financial Position, is a heading 31st of July 2023. It's obviously not correct. We want that to say 31st of August 2023. The figures do represent August. And on page 48, the deposition. In my last financial report that I gave, the deposition was incorrect. It did not correctly reflect the annual plan. These figures do, and they reflect the large amount of capital expenditure that we expect to have over the next year. Other than that, I'll take the report as read, and through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much for that, Cody. Questions, please. Councillor William.
Through the chair, someone inevitably asked this, but the sundry debtors on page 47, 1.6 million.
Yeah, that's right. If you take a look at my notes to the Statement of Comprehensive Revenue and Expenditure, I mentioned a $1.5 million grant, swimming pool grant, that was invoiced back in July and is yet to be received, likely due to the criteria for that grant to be received have not yet been met.
Thank you.
If I may, Cody, good acknowledgement of the human errors. There seems to be one on page 39. It's not ideal. It's on the bookmarking. The first 3 lines, the bookmark's not right. I think that was last month's issue as well. So not labouring those ones. My real question on page 42, operating revenue down 11.64%, operating expenditure up 4.41%. Is that just some early year hiccups, or are we expecting to see that carry out for the rest of the financial year?
Well, yeah, it is early. Of course, it's only been 2 months. And yeah, a lot of that does sort of depend on timing of grants, as always, of course, with that being down 35% to what we anticipate. And much of it as well has to do with when we complete the annual report for 22-23, we're taking moving a lot of expenditure back, moving a lot of revenues and expenditure back into this current financial year. So yeah, a lot of movements in the background for sure that we might not be picking up, but yeah, other than that, I can't predict the future.
Yeah.
It's like some of it will likely be timing differences.
Yeah, thank you. Can you work on that predicting the future? That'd be really useful.
Cody, I've got one just on the increase of the finance costs. Are we expecting any more? Are they unexpected increases?
At the moment, the RBNZ, because that's what a lot of it is based on, the RBNZ, whenever they increase the official cash rate, that sort of increases our interest expenses. At the moment, they're forecasting that that will stay the same. There is a chance that it might increase a little bit more, but at the moment it's looking good out for that. But it will remain high for the like a high of 5%, which is very high over the next year. So it will be high.
But we're covered for that with what we've got there.
But yeah, that's right. It's those interest expenses that are covered by interest rate swaps and also the term deposits that we have. So that sort of offsets it all.
Thank you. And just the over budget with the planning, building and resource consent processing fees, what is it? Is that common? Do we over budget with that, or is it that we've got more going on than expected? So is it more happening than what we anticipated compared to the budget?
Where are you looking for it? Where are you looking at?
I'm looking at the fees and charges on page. Oh God, sorry.
Summary document.
In the summary document.
They're revenues, and again, it could be timing differences. It could be timing differences, but that's revenue.
Yeah, it's revenue, but it's above what we forecasted to be.
Yeah. But again, it could be timing differences, and it's very difficult after 2 months to be able to to work through the timing differences.
Councillor Phelps.
Sorry, just unmute myself. Pardon my ignorance, but the capital expenditure projects just on page 49, most of them I understand as capital projects because you're spending money on doing the museum up, etc. What's the 1.8 million for planning and regulatory services? What are just the sort of rough breakdown of what those are?
Yeah, that I'd have to direct your question to someone from District Assets.
Okay, all right, I'll forward that through an email. Thank you.
What page is that?
It's page 49.
The only thing that would possibly spring to mind if it's planning and regulatory services is possibly the internal fit out for Carnegie, because there aren't any capital projects within planning and regulatory services. So I think probably Councillor Phelps would need to delve into that and come back to you.
I believe the capital report that comes to council separately to this will have more detailed information on that. I'm not sure, maybe Simon, when the next one is due to come to council?
We're part of my CE update next council meeting.
Next council meeting.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate the clarification.
Your Worship, there are some really big carryover items this time.
Through the chair, could we talk about that in the carryovers report?
Yeah. It's report to carryovers report. Yes.
So we can't answer those questions.
Yeah. Any further questions for Cody, please? Thank you, Leslie, for that. All right, no further questions for Cody? Right, so can I have a mover and seconder, please? Resolve that the financial performance report for 31st August 2003 be received. Councillor Casson, Councillor Blair, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cody. Well done. Lily, please. Projects and carry forwards for 2023-24. Thank you, Lily.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. So, through Your Worship, I present the request for carry forward budget approvals. And before we go on to it, I will point out one adjustment on page 55. And it is the sixth line from the top, surprise, surprise, racecourse development. Now this actually gives you some answer to your question earlier. In the column, which is white, it shows 300,000 spent as at the 30th of June. We have just now accrued another 38,000 into that year, so the carry forwards will be reduced by that amount. That was a June invoice received late. Now, also, I would just point out that the blue column to the right of that shows what we had allowed for in the annual plan, because we realised there would be some carry forwards. So the key in this request is the variances column. So if we scroll to the bottom of the capital report, sorry, wrong column. In the annual plan, we had 9.7 million, and at the end of the year, we find we've got another 3.6 million that was incomplete, and we're requesting the carryover for. So through the chair, I'll take any questions.
Questions, please, Melanie? Councillor Clear?
Through the chair, I'm not really supporting the carry overs. I think my look at it is there's a lot of LTP stuff that the new group is not really in favour of. There's money's there that, you know, we've got Carnegie out of 700,000, we've got Archives 500, Square Park Playground still at 1.1.
So, I'm sorry, what is...
Digital Interactive Package,
So-
Racecourse.
But what is your point?
Well, the report is asking us to carry this funding over, but I don't know whether we're actually going to spend it.
Yes, but it's been carried over, we've got to make that decision.
Yes.
And to do that, it's going to be...
So unless I can have it clarified why we want to carry it over.
we can't just drop them off the schedule that's there, because they're
Well, there is an
long-term plan
option.
amendments.
The report says you can, option 2 will be to revisit them and then decide what is carried over. And that's the ongoing.
Yes, but that's exactly how it can happen, but we can't just scrub them off, they've got to be...
No, because we did have a discussion, an informal discussion about, for example, Carnegie, is it really going to cost 700,000 to...
And that's something that has to come back to the table for...
So I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe we need to pull some of these numbers out. And
So if I can get for clarification then, Lee, if we go for option 1, which means everything stays there, we can still pull those out for discussion as they fall due for discussion, as in the museum and so forth through. Those topics can still come forward for discussion as to whether we carry on with them. Might be a cross between Lindy and Scott here.
So the carry forward, none of this money has been spent, obviously, and so it's not affecting ratepayers at all. If you drop them out now and you decide that you want to spend some money on these and you haven't carried the funding forward, you haven't got the funding. You can carry it forward. You can always drop them off if you decide whether you want to do them or not. It doesn't, because it's not affecting ratepayers at this moment in time. There's no issue in carrying it forward. So you would be better carrying it forward. There's no given to spend it just because you're carrying it forward. It's just giving you that time to actually review what projects you do want to do and what you don't want to do.
Which would be the logical process.
There is one other slight issue with not going ahead with any projects that have funding. Castle Playground, for example, has 50% of that funded. We have sort of timing limits of completing, so there's potential if we've received the money that we may have to repay it. So those are very, very low.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lily, for that clarification, Leslie. Councillor Clear?
Just a point, because I just say it's risky because we've already spent 300,000 on the race, and that's 338.
338.
Yes, right. And where are we? And we've got $1 million in the pot to spend because it says we can, as part of the LTP. That money could just evaporate and no return. So I think you do have to do a little bit of it.
I don't believe it's risky. I think it's more risky if you don't carry it forward and then you find that you're wanting to spend and then you can't do, and then we're going to an LTP amendment and we have to go out to consult and then be audited, and which is much more risky. You can make a resolution to say yes, we'll carry over, but no project goes ahead without decision of council, which takes a radar risk.
Well, that won't be
Councillor Muniro.
I'm sick of going back to this race course. We're already voted to go ahead, but let's get on.
Well, we're talking about carryover, so I know. Okay, any further questions?
Just to note that the other carryover that is in that category that Councillor Gleek's talking about is the emergency operations centre of $1.1 million.
Yes.
That's in the same category.
Yes, it is.
But if there's as long as there's a resolution to that effect, that no capital project will go ahead without coming back to the council.
Councillor Neal?
Sorry, so the ones that are under that category, then they get put into the LTP through the discussion. Can we just pull them out without going to consultation?
No, this is for the current financial year in terms of carrying over, but this was being discussed, adding the tag on approval with council for proceeding with certain project.
So when it comes up to being approved by council, then can we just pull them without any consultation?
If the strategic assets and that we've given in the LTP, we've stated with certain level of service, then no, we would have an issue with that.
So we could,
but we can have a delay on it and redo it in the LTP, so say take it out in the next LTP.
And also bear in mind too, this is exactly what we've been doing since we came on board, is we have been reviewing a lot of these projects. They've come to council, we've workshopped them, we've had discussions on a lot of these, and we have not finished that piece of work. We've got a lot more to still review and work through. So just because it's written in here doesn't mean we're doing it. It's there, it's just things that we haven't actually got to work reviewing as to how they proceed, if they proceed. So just because they're in the carryover report doesn't mean that we're going to run out tomorrow and actually implement everything at all.
So through the chair, can we have an amended option 1 that includes that proviso?
Just through your worship, if councillors want us to come back to council for every single project that we're executing, we're not going to do that on our projects this year. You're talking, you don't even have a price range you're considering. At the end of the day, we've got projects in the 3 water space, which are pretty well just need to get on and do it without needing to pay. Does that include capital projects that aren't unbudgeted in terms of critical replacements that come through? So we need to be very careful when you make a resolution of projects coming back to full council. We can do it as a benchmark of, for example, $500,000 in terms of the scale that we actually provide a full business case prior to proceeding. But there are some of these are operational type projects that have to be done anyway. We're going to tie ourselves up in the knots trying to provide a lot of detail and a lot of reports to council every 5 minutes. Becomes very, we'll be spending a whole day and a half in council just going through each individual project.
I'll come to you, Patrick.
I've got I don't know whether I'm slightly out of cycle, but I actually got an answer to Councillor Phelps' question about the planning and regulatory services from the last paper, so when it's appropriate I can give that answer.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for that. Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. So just to clarify, just because something's on the list and just because it's got a number next to it doesn't mean that it's budgeted for, doesn't mean that we're rating or borrowing for it. Is that right, Simon or Leslie?
It's definitely budgeted for, that's why it's there. But whether it's to go ahead is based on the feedback and based on criticality.
Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah, so anything on here, so say loan funding, we don't actually draw down a loan till after the asset has been commissioned. So the project, if the project hasn't even started, then there's no loan funding. So there's no repayments, there's no interest, there's nothing. So if it's on here saying it's loan funding, that's what it's earmarked to be funded by. But if the project doesn't go ahead, it just doesn't get funded. We don't draw down the loans, there's no interest on it. So it doesn't affect rate pay, because we only budget for it a year after we expect it to be commissioned.
I guess my only concern is that whatever those projects may be that are on the list for capital items, they all add up to a bottom line of a total cost, and then there'll be certain things that we go back to the ratepayer in terms of whether it just be roading, pipes works, footpaths, etc., and say, oh, we've got spending thresholds, we've got funding limits, we couldn't possibly put something else on the list. But are we distinguishing enough between the core services and, whether it be things like playgrounds or whatever else, because they're all adding up to that total number in terms of capital projects.
Don't forget the funding element on it as well. We lose the funding. If we've had any money, we have to repay it.
So if you look at the stuff that's 100% better off funding, that's stuff that we bid for external funding that we get the money from outside. And that a large proportion of that will be things that we've already started that are mid-delivery but haven't been fully completed yet.
So is everybody understanding that actually how this works and how we actually review this going forward? Paul, I'll take this as the last point.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to comment on the Chief Executive's comments, the concerns with the Clean Waters projects that are funded, for instance, but it's with the likes of the museum and the Emergency Operations Centre that haven't been to this table.
Just a comment, we would always, like we have already stated, bring back a business case for council consideration before going ahead. So once again, those are large projects, over $500,000. So I can make a commitment today that anything over $500,000 comes back as full business case for council consideration.
And that's along the lines of.
I mean, really, to be honest, we're only talking about a couple of particular things on this thing.
Yes, we are.
Not all of it.
Yes.
The management need to get on and do their job. We need to highlight which they are, and let's just debate it. So I don't think we need to go that far, mate.
I think I know which ones you're talking about.
So that's all we need. Yeah, I think I'd support what Frank was saying and what Simon's comment just then. Simon understands our council view about some of these projects and make a judged decision on what we need to know and make decisions on.
And just for the chair to endorse the CE's comments, I think insurance to Marco Paul and Francois in terms of the EOC and the museum, they are definitely business plans that will be, or project business plans that will be put
I just think pulling the handbrake on too hard is going to create more problems.
And an awful lot of work for staff, we have to appreciate. We've still got the LTP to go through, so we've got to think about the big picture here. It's not just about us, it's about the whole work scheme and what is of relevance and what can and should be moving forward. Simon?
Just one caveat, obviously some funding is going to have to be utilised from those funds to develop business cases and do some assessments. Not a lot, just enough to be able to bring back a business case to council.
Are there any others other than the civil defence in the museum that people want noted against that option? Purely just those two projects.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, there's both council building and back, which is already part of discussions anyway. I think it's proceed.
Yeah, so the report be received. But
further recommendations.
So what we'll do is, if you're happy to, councillors, will move and second and resolve that the report be received. That council approve the carry forward of funds for the projects and operational costs itemised in Appendix 1 and 2 to the financial year of 2023-24, and that council continue with the revision of the EOC Museum, Picky Whitewood Building, Council Building, Playground and Racecourse as noted in the carryovers. Does that cover everything? Do you want? Yeah. And point 3, that council approve the future allocation of funds for the specific purposes. So is everybody happy with that? So I've changed the reading on here. Council approve the future allocation of funds for specific. Oh, God. Of the EOC museum, Kathy Whitewood building, the playground, racecourse, and council building for review. So that means in essence then that the council can pursue in its day-to-day management and business carry on with the other projects that are in here.
Yeah.
That those ones will come back to council for a full report. Rather than bog council down with a report on everything that is in here, they can carry on with their day-to-day business.
Yeah.
These things come back to us for reports as we've done in the past.
Sorry, can I just come in on the playground, because we're actually out to tender at the moment on that, and the money is funded through lotteries.
Yes, it is. Right.
The working group.
There is a working
Yes.
group, and we're going to
Back to council in October. The report will come back, so a report will come back to council for that anyway.
Yes, so we've actually been through that review aspect of it, and we're actually into that next level of that. So take it out, because we're still going to come back.
It's not a matter.
Leave it there, because it's still going to come back.
Still going to come back.
It's still going to come back for review. Right, thank you, Councillor Casson. Can I have a seconder to that? Thank you, Councillor Manero. Everybody happy with that? Sorry? Oh, I think you said no. And everybody's crystal clear on that, on those points? Yep, cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Lily, very much for that. Right, moving on now to Scott, please, the Hope Ticket Launch Lower Swing Bridge report.
Would you be happy for me just to answer Councillor Proctor's question about the regulatory services in the earlier report, because one of Leslie's colleagues has very kindly sent information through. Would that help? So 1.884, it's a fair amount of it is better off funding relating to civil defence. There is also a figure in there to one of the topics we've just discussed, which was the Emergency Operations Centre. So that primarily makes up the totality of that. Does that help?
The 783 in the line item below must be for the museum.
So you've got Civil Defence Emergency Operations Centre, Harry Development Strategy, Civil Defence Prime, Interior Community Civil Defence Emergency Hub, Ross Community Civil Defence Emergency Hub, Supply and install of civil defence infrastructure, Kamara Memorial Hall, Supply and Community Resilience Container, Civil Defence Emergency Communications Equipment, Hannah's Clearing Fire Station Upgrade, and the Westland Tourism Marketing Infrastructure. That's within that financial heading. Moving on to the bridge, I'm taking the paper as read and taking questions.
Thanks for the report. And so just a comment that approving the budget to close the old bridge. Great information. So congratulations.
Good work all the way around. Great results we can get that up and going for the next season.
Simon and I have got a meeting with Doc on Tuesday next week to start map out the detail.
Just to highlight, councillors, we still haven't received the official contract from MP at the moment, and that includes the previous TIP applications that were approved back 3-4 weeks ago, so we're still waiting and chasing them, by the way. We don't want government to change hands without a contract in hand.
We don't want the 15th of October to arrive before that contract's with us.
Councillor Neil.
Just a question, the council contribution is unbudgeted and will be loan funded. Now, I think that's, does it say that in the report? I couldn't find that. Does that need to be noted as part of it?
It's actually already in the budget as far as R&M on the swing bridge. That reading serves me right.
That's probably you. That's going to be clarified here.
It came out of the discussion that the council.
Sorry, Jane, that was from the last report. it should have been highlighted again, but it is still committed 50K if required.
Thanks.
Right, anything further for discussion?
I just saw there was annual maintenance on that bridge, 12,000.
It's a load test. So once you put one in, we have to do an assessment annually in terms of insurance. That's another piece of work process.
But they're paying for that to happen, aren't they?
The current conversation is so there's a road closure and a bridge asset handover. So the road would have to close first, the paper road, and then conversation. So they're in agreement with the concept. We just have to obviously work through that.
But understandably, they're not prepared to take something that is at the end of life.
And not on their property either.
Everybody quite happy with that? Any further questions for Scott? Can I have a move and receipt with please resolve that one, the report be received, the council confirm the retrospective approval of applications and tourism infrastructure fund to proceed to building a new bridge for the line of College. Thank you, Councillor Burton, Councillor Hesson, very much. Thanks Scott for that. That's excellent. Moving on to the annual dog control policies and practices report, Tiara Harcourt.
Kia ora koutou. I will take the report as read. Are there any questions?
Does the responsible dog owner have to be reassessed with each new dog?
It's just in terms of responsible dog owner, there's a number of criteria that they measure against, such as ensuring that it's a fenced property. But as long as they meet those requirements and they haven't had any instances of non-compliance in the previous 2 years.
I must put forward a favourable comment to the team, the dog control team, that the feedback from the community, wider community, I'm talking all the way south as well, has been exceptionally good for even people that have been offenders or had problems. They've got over the issue and they've actually been very, very appreciative of the way they've been handled and managed as far as their dog non-compliance or whatever. So kudos to them, we've got an exceptionally good team there, and Claire's very highly regarded out in the community because your passion for her animals has put her in a very good position for that role, as is her communication skills. So, yeah,
I will take that back to the team.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just take up all that. There's an issue with roaming dogs. Maybe understand that a little more. 16 dogs impounded in this period, 12 returned to the owners, 300, no dogs euthanized. That's great. Yeah. It's just an awesome result.
Yes.
And I think also when you refer to the roaming dogs, is that while there are 150 roaming dogs, you line it only 16 of those being impounded. That reflects back to the comments that you've made and your worship, and that you've told Martha for in terms of the good public relations that our animal control officers are now having in terms of trying to actually actively identify the owners, take that education step first, give them some guidance on how to better secure their properties or look after animals rather than here's 150 dogs that are now in town and here's the charges for it and all we get is that, instead of people saying thank you very much. So it's working very well and I'd like to continue with that. And as you've alluded to, we do have a greater presence down in South Western now as well, not once a week, at least once a fortnight. We have Claire actually down there and staying over in terms of vitamin hearts or box and short, seeing that coverage.
Yeah, I think the visibility of that coverage is paying dividends too. People are far more accountable of their dogs than what they should be. Thank you, TC, very much for that. Anybody have any questions for TC? Any further questions? Discussion? Thank you. Thanks, TC. Can I have somebody please move and second to resolve that the report be received, that council adopt the annual dog control policy and practices report, which is an important part of this report. The adopted annual dog control policy and practices report for 2022-23 is publicly notified and made publicly available on council's website. And the Secretary for Local Government is advised that the annual Dog Control Policy and Practices Report 22-23 has been published in accordance with Section 10A of the Dog Control Act 1996 and Section 5(1) of the Local Government Act 2002. Can I have a mover and seconder, please, to all that? Thank you, Councillor Baird, Councillor Gillett, thank you very much. Thanks, TC, for that. That's excellent. Thanks, everybody. Moving on. No, not yet to that. Okay, I'm going along quite nicely. I'll just get them in.
You can do it.
Sorry. The motorhome friendly report, which I will cover. Just going to behave. So the purpose of this report is for the council to confirm if it wishes the Western District to become a motorhome friendly district. We're talking the district. We're talking Taramacau through to Otira down to Jackson's Bay. So I'll take the report as read. As far as discussion goes with the communities, it's the discussion points and comments I have put in the final part, the Appendix 1. And I'm quite confident as far as the rubbish aspect goes that we can manage that by talking to the communities and looking at how, because at the moment, and it's the same with any tourist, you know, they pack up their rubbish, put it in a plastic bag, and then they go to Friends or Wataroa or wherever they're going, Okurito, and they drop their rubbish bag off by the rubbish bin, which overloads those communities' resources as well. So it's a matter of how we factor that in and address that. And that's been happening regardless of the motorhome friendly aspect of what we're looking at. So I'm talking to the NZMCA this morning. If we proceed with this, they're going to send a couple of their members down to Westland, and they will move around all the communities having those conversations. And I think I put in there too that there's certain things that they can list on their events about trails and environment. So the coverage is going to be exceptionally good. So Brian, even for Harry, that's the campground by the pub, and that's the community saying, look, we've got these walkways, we've got these here, and getting them on the site. So we can really take advantage of the numbers that are going to be travelling through, responsible campers that are travelling through. The overall comment was that they'd like them to stay in the motor camps or facilities that are provided, and that's a common practice of them all anyway. These guys don't really park to sleep in the bush. So I think it's a great opportunity for Westland as a district. Paul.
Yeah, through your worship. So yeah, I fully support the Motorhome Association, very responsible, and we heard last month. So that's not questioned. The only issue is with the commercial campground owners. I recall a few years ago when they put the motorhome camp site across the south side, there was quite a bit of angst with the commercial operators, and I just wanted to avoid that this time. Correct.
As much as, and I did actually raise that with them, to be honest, because that is a very confined area as well for them to park in. The general consensus seems to be that they're not going to be just staying in those places. They like to visit, they like to mix and mingle, they like to actually use the resources that are provided, and that includes commercial type camping facilities as well. They're not going to narrow themselves just down to the NZMCA site that's covered in their fee. So they're quite willing to pay to stay in different places. So.
Because there was some issue as well at Ross, wasn't there?
Yes.
But yeah, so it's just a matter of managing that, otherwise I'm fully supportive.
Even at Ross, the comment was that while they see campers parked at the Chinese Gardens by the lake every now and again, or by the bridge, the Tokyo Bridge, they would sooner they park down at the top 10, and that's where they will be recommended to stay on their website. So this information will go onto the website with the recommendations of the requests to stay, including the commercial operations that are there. That's good.
Just kind of a point of clarification, we're talking about the New Zealand Motor Association and members, it's mentioned reason responsible campers, not talking about NZMCA members, just to be clear.
Yes, we
yes,
No, and that's why I said we don't want a repeat of the past, so this is why this is being managed. Yes. And just actually, the members have to actually verify that they are members when they book into a business like staying or utilising a tourism opportunity. Sorry, I'll just.
With no responsible.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we've got to keep that separated. Councillor Phelps.
So I'm just confused. What is this, like, status is status in the sense of a status symbol, I guess. What does it actually mean to be motorhome friendly? We get a certificate saying that we are and they tell their members that we are. Other than that, does anything cosmically change, or is it just a label effectively?
It's a label effectively, Patrick, where because there's so many coming to the West Coast and into the South Island from the North Island for the next, about 6 months, in all reality. This means that, I mean, I've already been through a lot of the operators down south that teed up discounts for flights and accommodation or campgrounds or whatever. So it's actually, we're just trying to create a business opportunity and an opportunity for Westland and welcome them here. These guys have got firm rules that they comply with, so it takes away the risks for the communities to have them there. And I just want to allay the fears by doing things correctly and going through the correct channels.
Yeah,
so they put signs up saying that we're a motorhome friendly district, and they'll take care of business in every other aspect.
So we'll put signs up to that effect, or is it? Okay, yeah. And then they'll basically market us through their own communication channels or something like that, is that right? And yes. And this is largely your term, grey-haired nomads or retirees that have got their own motorhomes that sort of travel around and things like that. Is that the
signed up members to the NZMCA?
Yeah, okay. No, that's cool. I'm mainly just trying to understand what it is, but no, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
All good, thank you. Any further questions? No? Right, can I please have somebody, I've lost myself on page, number 5, those. No, it's not, hang on, I've all over the too many pages. Move in second, please, and resolve that the report be received and that Western District Council apply to become an official motorhome friendly district for the Western District. Thank you, Donald. Councillor Beard, Councillor Gillett, thank you very much, everybody, for that. We will stop now for afternoon tea. We're 10 minutes early, but we'll do that and then we'll come back and move on to the excluded section of the meeting.
I've just got one and I should have brought it up before, about the Happy Gorge suspension bridge. I'd just like to thank both the iwi for their support and particularly the Department of Conservation for their engagement and their design for the new bridge and taking a lead role in it. So the partnership is really good. So thanks very much.
It's a really good collaborative good result. It really is. Councillor Muniro.
Maybe we could swap the Lake Road. Doesn't land at Lake Waithi.
We'll see what we can do.
We'll come back to that for a little discussion. Right, so can I have something please move and second a resolve that we adjourn for afternoon tea and we'll reconvene at 10 past 3.
10 past 3? I'll just, yeah.
It's 10 past 3. Councillor Beard, sector please. Councillor Beard, thank you. Is there a problem?
Oh no, just quickly, Guy, I've got to click another link for the next meeting, don't I? Because it's confidential or something like that, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, all right. Sweet as. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Right. Thanks, everybody.